Thank you so much. My name is Sharon Atiang. I am from Uganda. I am pursuing Masters of Science in Rural Community Development. I'll just give you a bit of my childhood experience. Growing up from a less privileged family, but so much passionate for education and the change of the status quo of my family and the community around me, forced me to join a family that was willing to pay my high school tuition. I was 17 years of age by then. They wanted me to work as a domestic worker in their home as long as they pay my tuition. The experience wasn't a bit good. I remember waking up very early at 5 a.m. to prepare breakfast for the family, at the same time prepare kids to go to school. But I also had to be cautious to make sure that by 8 a.m. I am already arriving at school since I was studying and also working at the same time. In the evening, I get back at around 5:30 p.m. What I could do is just drop my school bag, proceed straight away to the kitchen, even without changing my uniform, trying to figure out what the family is going to have for dinner. That is just briefly about my experience. Um, I didn't experience any kind of physical or emotional torture in the family. Unlike Judith Nachintu, a former migrant domestic worker who joined 2019 in Saudi Arabia as a domestic worker, she lost her right kidney and became paralyzed. After working for only 2 months in Saudi Arabia, she found herself in the hospital, but she wasn't given a detailed information of what happened exactly. She was just being told by the boss that she got an accident. She demanded for her family to be called back home, of which they were called, but still they were not given detailed information of exactly what happened. They kept demanding for their daughter to be sent back home. In 2020, they went and approached the recruitment agency in Uganda, who also declined to give proper information of exactly what happened. In 2021, January, Judith's family received a call from the recruitment agency in Uganda that she will be landing in Uganda. The family was very excited, the fact that they will be receiving their sick daughter, but they didn't have they have no clue of what exactly happened to their daughter. Upon receiving her, they took her to a government hospital for further examination, only to be discovered that she lost her right kidney. That led her to being paralyzed. And still, they tried contacting the recruitment agency and the boss in Saudi Arabia. Still, further information wasn't given. The story of Judith is one of the stories of the many girls, young girls out there who experiences tortures and any other nasty experience of being a domestic worker outside of their country. Just a brief definition of what migrant domestic workers are. Migrant domestic workers are people who work in the private household in countries that are not of their nationality. And they usually offer care services, including cooking, cleaning, taking care of the sick. They offer cooking, taking care of the sick, including children, the elderly. They wash dishes, they wash clothes, and all that. According to International Labour Organization, 80% of migrant domestic workers are based in high-income countries, and of this, 52% are based in the Arab countries. And out of this, 73% are female migrant domestic workers. Why do young women get out of their country looking for a better livelihood? Unemployment and underemployment is topping. There is also unfair distribution of economic resources in their countries, and also war and conflict. What are the plight of these female migrant domestic workers in the countries they go to? Most of them are subjected to sexual gender-based violence and abuse, including rape. Most of them are sexually harassed with improper attachment, or maybe touching when you don't want someone touching your boobs, someone touching your bums, which are uncalled for. There's also forced confinement. How does this happen? Most of them on arrival, their passports are detained by their employers for the 2-3 months that they're going, for the 2 or 3 years that they're going to be working. And also their phones are retained by the workers for maybe 24 hours in a day or 16 hours in a day that will be working. So they have access to their phones only at night, which limit their communication with friends and other families during day. And the biggest of all is a miscommunication on the job. And this starts right from their countries. You can apply to be a receptionist, for instance, in the UAE, or maybe a saloonist. And then on reaching, they're going to tell you that you're going to be a domestic worker. And yet you can't even do domestic work. And most of them also have no knowledge of employment rights. Employment rights include you working in a community, doing a job that is conducive, working in a conducive environment where you're not subjected to abuses, maybe you're not paid and all that. So most of these female migrant domestic workers don't have a clue of what it is. Just a snapshot on specific statistics of experience of female migrant domestic workers in Asia and Africa as continents. About 17,000 Bangladesh female migrant domestic workers were subjected to forced return, deportation, even with no payment for the years they worked for. Most of them were subjected to shortage of food. Food is good for our health. If you don't eat, trust me, you won't even have 2 hours energy to work. And most of them were also subjected to 20 hours of work. Can you imagine working for 20 hours out of the 24 hours? Most times I use my laptop like for about 12 hours and it starts freezing. A laptop is like it's like a robot. How about a human being working for 20 hours? It's really drastic. And in Africa, Kenyan female migrant domestic workers, about 89 of them died between the year of 2020 to 2021. Narrowing it down to my country, Uganda, 41% of the youth are unemployed. And of these, 24% are women of age 20 to 24. Still in Uganda, about 60,229 migrant domestic workers left for the Middle East in 2021 to 2023 only. And 300 migrant domestic workers live to the Gulf. Only Gulf, 300 every day living for the Gulf only. How about other countries? And of this still, 77% of those who live are women. Very big percentage. Briefly, what are the experiences of these female migrant domestic workers in Uganda who live to the Gulf and any other countries? Most of them are subjected to forced prostitution. Most of them are kept in isolation, as I mentioned, because of the passport detainment. And there's a big issue of mismanagement of the money they send back to their families. I'm also going to give a brief story of the 2 people I encountered ever since I came to Lebanon. Last year, through an organization run by a female migrant domestic worker here, basically working on the welfare of female migrant domestic workers, I met a Ugandan who has been here for about 2.5 years. She finished her contract for 2 years, and she has been sending money to her family to buy land and for other investments. To her surprise, none of the money she has been sending has been invested, and yet she had already prepared herself to go back home. This really traumatized her to the point that she saw no point going back home because she can't go back to the same family or maybe the same status she was before. And this forced her to just stay around Lebanon and resort to something called road work. And what is road work? She told me road work is prostitution, and prostitution, I bet, come with consequences. Another story is about my friend whose sister got an opportunity to work as a receptionist in the UAE. She called me about 2 months ago asking for some financial help and also the process of getting a passport and any other travel documents, of which I helped her. But even after helping her, lots of questions came into my mind. I was like, are they aware that would be possibly she didn't actually get a job as a receptionist? She's going to be working as a domestic worker. Do they even know that they might experience discrimination and any other drastic treatments or experiences that other female migrant domestic workers have been experiencing? So the story of this Ugandan in Lebanon and the story of this girl motivated me to come up with a project called Tuwayemu. Tuwayemu is simply talk, let us talk. And the project is going to be based in the northern, I think you can all see the northern and eastern in the map. It's going to be based in the northern and eastern part of Uganda. Why did I choose this specific place? This is a region infested with high level of poverty. The girls in the region are less educated. They have very high level of desperation because of poverty. They just want to get out of their own setting and look for a better lifestyle. But also girls in this region have low negotiation power because of low self-esteem, and they just want to get out of their, of their cycle. Some of them have not even reached the town like Kampala city. So they just so much desperate to get out of the place. All these experiences I've been giving you here are issues of human rights. And with this, we are going to involve human rights activists as stakeholders in the radio talk show. We're also going to include the returnees who are going to share in their experiences, whether good or bad, to just motivate and also try to inform others of the possibilities of happenings out there. We're also going to include labor section, which are very important, labor externalization. We also include community-based organizations and non-governmental organizations. Why did we choose the radio talk show in particular? The biggest reason is that most of the rural people in the region use radio as a means of communication. They have no access to phones, televisions, and many others. It is also easy to organize radio talk show compared to television talk shows, and it is a bit cost-friendly. And also the important thing is that I have contacts in those radio talk shows. I've ever had talk shows with them, and surely they would just be a call away if I call them. And what exactly will we be talking about in the radio talk show? We will be talking about the pre-checkups on authentic recruitment firms, because we realize that especially in my country, most of the recruitment firms are very fake. We'll also talk about travel documents, like checking through the travel documents and any kind of arrangements. We'll also be talking about the working conditions, as I mentioned, that is going to be shared by the former migrant domestic workers. But most importantly, we'll involve the international and national support helplines for those who could be in trouble and need any kind of help. But also, we'll talk about opening bank accounts. You'd rather just save your money instead of sending your money to your family who are going to just misuse it. We are going to have one partnership with a feminist organization, because this is also a women's issue, and the feminist organization is called Akina Mama Africa, which is very pronounced in Uganda when it comes to socio-economic issues of women. And the radio station we are going to use is Radio Wa. Radio Wa is widely used by, is widely open to both North and Eastern Uganda. Thank you. I end by saying women's rights are human rights. Let's all endeavor and stand up to make sure that women's rights are protected and observed. Thank you.